Chris and Chris Talk Movies.
Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Chris Ferry, and of course, this is my co-host.
My name is Chris Huddleston.
And today we are both very excited to be talking to you about a film from our youth, Terry Gilliam's Time Bandits. Do you have a synopsis for us, Mr. Huddleston?
I do. So, as you said, it is a Terry Gilliam film from 1981, Time Bandits. A young history buff, Kevin Craig Warnock, can scarcely believe it when six. Okay, I'm never sure about the term. They say dwarfs. I don't know if you should say little people.
I don't know.
So apologies if that's the wrong term. Emerge from his closet one night. Former employees of the Supreme Being, Ralph Richardson, they've purloined a map charting all of the holes in the fabric of time and are using it to steal treasures from different historical eras. Taking Kevin with them, they've variously dropped in on Napoleon, Ian Holm, Robin Hood, John Cleese, and King Agamemnon, Sean Connery, before the Supreme Being catches up with them. So I had actually not seen this. So do you care if I go first?
Wow, you hadn't seen it.
I realized I hadn't seen it.
By all means.
So this is a movie that I was always aware of. I thought I had probably seen this at some point, but I don't think I had, because really the only thing really that I knew about this was that it was these little people traveling through time. It starts in present day and it ends in present day, and I didn't know any of that. So I think I had probably not seen this. But I was always aware of it, and I knew this is what I really like about doing the show, because it's one that I've thought about many times over the years. You know, I'd be like, have I seen that? Have I not? But I thought I should visit this or revisit it. It's on HBO Max. It's Criterion Collection edition of this. And it looks really great. Terry Gilliam, for me, is a director, a creator who can be hit and miss, hot and cold for me. We did 12 Monkeys at some point on the podcast, which you didn't like as much as me. 12 Monkeys would rank somewhere among my favorite films. I mean, it'd probably be in my top, definitely be in my top 50, probably somewhere in my top 30 or 25. I just think it's a great movie. With this, there's some really great elements. I'll watch almost anything that involves time travel in some way. So I'm in with all that. All of the performances are great. You have an excellent performance from Sean Connery. I mean, I just think this is among, his really great stuff that he's done. He has a small part in it. You have Ian Holm as Napoleon, who is excellent. John Cleese is only in it for about 5 minutes as Robin Hood, and John Cleese could just read the phone book, and I would be, he's great in everything. It's just him being him. And there's a really great scene where they have the Time Bandits have stolen all of these things from Napoleon, and they land in the era of Robin Hood, and they open up this bag with all these paintings and goblets and everything, and he's like, oh, you have some wonderful things here. The poor are going to love it. Have you met the poor, wonderful people? And so they're like, no, we stole this for us. Yes, you steal from the rich and you give to the poor. And, he takes their things. And so I loved all of that. And I enjoyed it overall. My real criticism of it would be a lot of the scenes just kind of drag on too long, and I found myself bored at times. It's an hour and 50 minutes. An hour and 20 minutes, hour 30 minutes would have been perfect for this. I think, like, early on in the film, so it's a bit like, which was a film that came later, but it's kind of like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, because they just travel around through time and, and find these historical figures. They do not take them with them like Bill and Ted and assemble a band or anything, but they, so all of that is fun. But like in the first historical figure they encounter is Napoleon, and there's a scene where Napoleon is watching a Punch and Judy show, and he's laughing and he loves it. And that finishes, and then the actors, they do some other performance and he doesn't like that. And he doesn't, it's the next thing. And I think the film thinks all of this is really hilarious, but it goes on for about 10 or 12 minutes. And you're just like, this could have been 2 minutes and we'd get the joke,
Yep.
So the parts that are good in it are good to great, but it drags. And I don't know if that is, just looking at it with 2022 eyes, where we're so used to, but we did last week, we did The Shape of Water, and that's a 2-minute film, and I wouldn't cut anything from it. There's nothing, it just moves along and everything is, you know what I mean? What did you think?
I do. I agree with your assessment. When I saw it as a kid, I was a huge Monty Python fan.
Mm-hmm.
Mega fan. Loved everything.
And this is written by, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but written by Terry Gilliam and, damn it,
Michael
Palin, who appears in it. He's in it a couple of different roles. You have Shelley Duvall, who's great. Everybody in it is great. It's this great mix of elements that doesn't necessarily form a great whole.
And when I saw it as a kid, I was bitterly disappointed in it because I wanted it to be like the Holy Grail. I thought, it's got John Cleese, it's got, Michael Palin, it's done by Terry
Now, did you
Gilliam.
see it as a child or like
I saw
middle
it
school or high school?
No, I mean, I would have been in junior high, maybe.
Okay.
81 it came out. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
If you saw it like 5 years later, we would
go to the theater and see it, but like when
Sure,
it got to HBO,
Yeah.
And I just, so I was in my young teens, I guess, and I just really wanted to be something that it's not. I agree that it does drag, and I think that the name performances for the most part are spectacular. Rewatching it as an adult, I liked it enormously more.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know more of Ian Holmes' work. Ian Holmes is Napoleon in this, and it's wonderful. It's delightful. John Cleese, Terry Gilliam is such a history wonk. Like, he's so persnickety about getting everything just so. And one of my favorite things about the Robin Hood sequence is they jump through one of the time holes. They're usually jumping through something, not really knowing where they're going and just escaping from some other threat. And the creator sort of shows up as a disembodied head, return the map, and it's sort of, they run and they go through a time hole. So they land in the woods and there are some ruffians in the woods, and it becomes, there's some rich people that are a recurring trope. It's Michael Palin and Shelley Duvall are this kind of recurring couple through time that are comic relief, and here they're nobles and they're being robbed by these ruffians. So you're like, oh, okay, this is Middle Ages. Cool. And they have a funny little scene, and then you end up with these nasty looking ruffians who it turns out are part of the Merry Men, and they look bad. Like, they're wearing rags and the terrible teeth, and they're filthy, and they're like, oh, well, you must come and meet our leader, and they go get him. And it's very menacing. They're all tied up, and we'll go get him. And here comes John Cleese comes stepping out of this tent in the background.
He's kind of posh,
And I don't know how tall John Cleese is, but he's very tall. And in this movie, it's sort of shot from the kid's angle sitting on the ground, and he looks twice as tall as anybody else there. And he is dressed. He has this little page boy wig with the green hat with the feather, and it has a long cap and the kind of slashed puff sleeves. And he's, hello, I'm Hood. Yes, he's everything that these merry men are. He's this aristocratic, he goes around, shakes each other. And what's your name? Jolly good. And he goes to the next dwarf or little person, whatever the correct term is. And you are? The guy says nothing. Jolly good. Because he's the epitome of this upper crust. Oh, it's so funny. I didn't think it was funny at the time because I don't think I got some of the deeper cuts, but like Terry Gilliam is a good enough director to cast Sean Connery, Ian Holm, the guys that he worked with in Monty Python, Shelley Duvall, and get out of their way. Because when they're cooking, and I forget the guy who plays absolute evil, but he's from Tron and a number of other things
and he's
talked
great.
about. And he is a classically trained. He is also a great actor. I think him. It's not super clear because he is supposed to be scary, but he's also supposed to be funny. And I think that
David Warner.
Yeah, David Warner, leavening the scenes, figuring out a way to make. He's basically the devil, but he's just, there's the creator and then there's the force of evil, and he is the force of evil. He is supposed to be scary, but it's also supposed to be funny. And I think Terry Gilliam's trying to leaven. He wants to be genuinely scary, but he wants to leaven it with comedy because I think he's thinking this is a kid's movie. And it's the part of the film. Unfortunately, it's Act 3. So it's important that the thing stay really sharp and clips along, but that's where it kind of loses its footing, I think. Because the comedy isn't funny and it's sort of leaden and it's pitching, here's a funny joke, kids. And you're kind of like, well, the rest of the movie hasn't really been like this. The one thing I will say about Terry Gilliam, the visuals throughout here are absolutely spectacular.
I just looked up the budget. It's $5 million was the budget. And there was a lot of this movie where I was like, is this a location or is this a set? It looks so, they're in churches and mansions and these different things. And it's like, I couldn't tell what was a set and what wasn't. It
would
like
not
you said,
have believed it. $5 million.
Fantastic. Yeah. $5 million.
Sounds so low to me, just on the basis of how the movie looks.
Yeah.
And his imagination is bonkers. Like his imagination rivals Del Toro in my mind. Like there's a scene in which they're on a ship, there's pirates and they're on a ship, and then the ship starts keel hauling and a giant size of a mountain giant is walking up out of the water, and the ship was right underneath him, so he's wearing the ship like a hat. And there's all kinds of wonderful touches. Like the giant has these sort of crazy tattoos, like vaguely Pacific Islander tattoos, but he's also got big ear. Like the design, he's like George Lucas in this regard. Like he has a whole backstory for this giant and his giant's history and culture and everything that never comes into the movie. It's just there visually to make it distinct. It blew me away watching it I think as a kid. Absolutely. I thought, well, that looks cool, but now I was like, man, look at that shot. Look at that. That is just crazy cool.
And no CGI. There was no CGI back then.
Right.
And there's never anything in this where it's like, oh, they're obviously on a green screen or anything like that. Everything looks real. And I think George Lucas is a great comparison because so famously, Gilliam is a guy who has always kind of butted heads with studios and, they've interfered a lot. But I think he's much like Lucas, where he's a guy that has all these brilliant ideas and brilliant visuals that probably needs a good editor to kind of excise some of the boring things or the things that don't quite work, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I don't want to find myself in the position of defending studios.
No, not at all.
But in some cases, like, I think anybody who knows what they're doing in a studio would see some of the stuff that Terry Gilliam has shot and say, this guy knows how to paint incredible pictures here, but he needs a little help making the story go down. Like he needs to it needs to hit certain marks for an audience to fall in love with it and want to come back and see it multiple times and recommend it to all of their friends.
And that's what a guy like Del Toro has. He has all these weird ideas and these crazy visuals, but he's also able to make it accessible, for everybody. I think with Time Bandits is a lot like, I don't know if you've seen Eric the Viking or The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, but those films are very much like this in that there's a lot of really cool things, but there's a lot of it where it's like, this is kind of a slog to get through.
Yeah. To break it apart a little bit, we start with the kid in the 80s, and he's got these parents. He's an only child, it seems. He's got these parents that are just glued to the TV, and they're completely vacuous, and they just want him to go to bed and be quiet and not make noise. And so when these adventurers come through his bureau, he goes with them. Imaginative kid, little history buff, as it says in the synopsis that you read. But then he meets, I thought one way of looking at this film might be that he meets a bunch of alternate father figures, right? He meets King Agamemnon, he meets Napoleon, he meets Robin Hood. And at the end, the guy who's absolute evil is talking about all of the things his parents are into, this modern new world, this microwaves and computer chips and things, the glittering commercialism that his parents seem so enamored of. And it's not clear in the movie that is a thesis or what it's trying to do, but it occurred to me because right off the bat, he meets King Agamemnon, and it's Sean Connery in among his most he doesn't have a lot to do.
But he seems like he's having a great time.
Yeah, he's so you see it. You go, okay, I get it. I get why everybody wants Sean Connery in the movie, because he's just got a 1,000,000 megawatt smile, and he radiates sort of strength, but not in a toxic way or he's just open and present, and we see him defeating a kind of a minotaur knight or somebody who's wearing a bull helmet. It's not clear whether it's supposed to be a minotaur or not. And by the end of it, Agamemnon has taken a shine to this kid. We don't have a lot of time for this to develop, but by the end, he says they're having this feast to celebrate his victory, and he's like, I'm adopting this boy as my son, right? So you get to be, and then the dancers take off their things, and it's the little people that have come to his friends who have come to sort of quote unquote rescue him and take him on to the next thing, and he doesn't want to go, and you're like, I would want to go either. This is amazing. What a
and because he's
trade-up.
Detached from his parents, and at the end, spoiler alert, his parents literally explode at the end of the film. And he's not upset about it at all. He's just like, oh, well, they're gone.
There's a chunk of pure evil that survives, and it's in their microwave oven. And they open it up, and their house burns down. And the fire guy says, here's the cause of it. And he holds this microwave oven and opens it up. And there's this chunk of what we have been told is absolute evil. It's what remains. Somebody didn't pick it up when the creator defeated the evil guy, and the kid recognizes it, and there's the fireman holding it, and mom on one side and dad on the other, and he opens it up, and the kid recognizes it, and he says, don't touch it. And his parents look at him, and then they both reach in and touch it. They go up in a puff of smoke.
Yeah, it's great.
And it's, so to me, it was this sort of, it's a children's movie. It's also kind of a fairy tale about a kid who wants different parents. And the movie doesn't end with him getting different parents. The movie ends with his, I guess, emancipation from his current parents, but he's too young. It's not like he's 16 where he just gets to, or 18 where he gets to go on and live his life. Like he's going to put in some foster thing. So
you don't know what's going to happen to the kid. Yeah.
It's this weird ending. I thought, I'm like, well, he should end up back with Agamemnon, or Agamemnon should have been last. Like he should have started with Robin Hood and then Napoleon, and then, right? Because Robin Hood is a distant father figure in one way, and Napoleon is a self-absorbed, he's a distant father figure in another way. And it isn't, except for Agamemnon, who is this sort of guy that is open and really seems to see the kid and just take a natural shine to him, right? And yet we lead with that. And I thought, maybe I should go work for a studio, but I feel like, then you want the movie to end with that somehow, where he gets a happy ending with somebody.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if there was a way to edit this movie to make it feel not like a slog. I think that what you have on screen with Absolute Evil is a little doesn't quite work. And so you
No.
can't fix that just by cutting stuff, but you could certainly make the thing trip along for most of the movie a little bit better.
I think some of the scenes, like again, you have a part late in the film where they're on a ship and there's an ogre, and the ogre is supposed to just be hilarious, their interactions with him, and it's not.
It's not.
Maybe to little kids, but you were a little kid when you watched it, or you were, somewhere in your youth when you watched it, and you didn't think it was funny, at the time.
No.
It's very, so Terry Gilliam he's American. He was born in the United States, but he worked with Monty Python. He did the animation for them and everything. So this is everybody in it is English, or, Sean Connery, I think, is Welsh, but so it's very, I really liked, one of the things that did strike me as really funny is the supreme being is just, he's very, very British, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just,
so is the creator.
So is the creator, yeah.
The creators of this daughtering.
That's what that won't do.
Yeah, you need to pick this up, yeah.
And he's just, has a 3-piece suit, and it's basically a corporation. The little people work for his corporation that he has, because he says, well, I'm going to send you back to department whatever. And that is a theme in, corporate overlords, and that's a running theme in Gilliam's films, right. Like Brazil and everything. But I just thought
creation isn't some mystical thing; it's a bureaucracy.
Exactly. And I just thought that was really funny. That definitely. And as a kid, like that's gonna go over your head. I mean, there's not gonna be anything about that that's really going to be appealing. But yeah, it's it made me, I guess, a little bit sad, because it has a lot of really great elements, and there are certainly things that I'm glad we watched it.
Yes.
But it just, and I think, like, if you showed this to a kid today, I think they'd just be bored to tears, sadly.
Yeah. Well, when you say it's pretty clearly a kid's movie, right?
Yeah, and that's what I felt.
Pitched at kids, but my sort of litmus test question would be, Terry, what age kid are you aiming at here? Because it does seem to sort of slew around a little bit. And it's not, you can say, oh, kids 5 to 25. And you're kind of like, yeah, that's not a demographic. You really want to, the ogre stuff where it's, oh, my bunion's hurt. Oh, boo.
Yeah, that's kind of like fart jokes, and
very broad and much younger kids. And I feel like the demographic it's aiming at gets younger as the movie goes, which is why I think it stumbles in the second half to Act 3.
Wow.
I don't know if they shot it out of sequence. Maybe I don't know what would account for that, but it is weird.
This kind of surprises me. On a $5 million budget, it did $42 million in the United States, and it just only made a tiny amount of money internationally. I would have figured this would have been like a big movie in England, but would have flopped here. But I didn't realize it was. So this was like a pretty big hit, really, for Terry Gilliam.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because I mean, I just can't imagine this getting into theaters today.
Yeah,
it's
kind of heartbreaking, because the visuals are so stunning, and there's
all the money is up on screen. It just looks great.
It looks like it's more than it just as a a vehicle, it just doesn't quite fly. And we've watched worse movies.
Oh, this isn't by no means a bad movie. I mean,
parts of it are so good.
Yes.
That you want it all to be that good. And yet architecturally at its core, you're like, wow, this house looks amazing. But, the foundation's cracked. Like I'm not going to buy this house, but I wish that it didn't have the flaws because I would, I would want to buy this house if it was sound. It just, it does. When a movie drags at the end, it's like, it's kind of a kiss of death. You're like, you got to bring it home.
This just popped into my head, but I think this could be compared in some ways to Legend that we watched a while back. Again, another brilliant director, Ridley Scott, and a really great looking film that doesn't all quite come together. Some excellent elements, but again, with that movie, I felt like it kind of took some work to get through all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And probably meant to be a kid's movie.
And if I had to watch one of those two again, I would watch Time Bandits again.
Oh, me too. For sure. For sure.
So right there, I mean, I say we've watched worse movies. We've watched many movies that are a lot worse. This is one of those ones.
Like I say,
you wish
this is in no way a bad film. I mean, this is, great acting performance, great visuals, and some parts that are genuinely funny, but just, I just was thinking, wow, I wish that if this were a movie, you have, and maybe he could only get them for a brief time or whatever, and nothing against the actors who played the Time Bandits themselves, because they all do really great performances.
They do.
But you have John Cleese and Sean Connery, make them the Time, and Ian Holm, make them the Time Bandits, 90 minutes of them running around stealing stuff from historical figures. It would have just been incredible.
Yeah, I wondered about that too. I wondered about the decision.
Maybe he just had each of them for a day or two or something,
Right, on $5 million. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Especially John Cleese, who's on screen for 5 minutes.
I thought that the Time Bandits, and when I was a kid, I was kind of, I remember I didn't connect with that either. I'm like, why? But now I'm like, those are actually really good performances. Those aren't just
nothing against
peripheral
them at
characters
all.
Where they walk up and hand Santa a toy or something. Like They have roles to get their teeth into, and there's a lot of good acting there. I mean, it's not the best comic timing across the board that I've ever seen on screen. I don't want to qualify it with saying, it's like when you qualify, it's not bad for a kid actor, but the kid was a little bit flat too, frankly.
Sure, yeah. And
but I mean, it's a high bar. Not everybody Spielberg can get this incredible performance out of kids.
Right. But if I were an executive, I would have said, okay, I'm going to have Sean Connery, John Cleese.
Sean Connery's the kid.
Yeah. Perfect casting. But I would the Time Bandits would be Sean Connery, John Cleese, Michael Palin, and Shelley Duvall. Make them the Time Bandits, and just you don't even have to write dialogue, just let them riff, you know, and maybe it'd make 142 million instead of
I think the scenes with Michael Palin and Shelley Duvall are really funny.
Yeah,
I think that they're really funny. They're two silly lovers. They're ridiculous lovers, and at first they're a medieval, lord and lady, and then second they're on the Titanic, and he has got some horrible growth right on the end of his nose, hairpiece. It's very broad, but they're funny. Again,
Michael Palin, another guy who is just funny in everything.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Something we should do sometime, because it has been probably 25 years since I've seen it, but we should do A Fish Called Wanda.
That's a great movie.
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
That's a great movie. We had talked about doing yet another Del Toro movie, Kronos.
Yeah. So if you want to get into things next,
let's tie this off. So you had never seen this. Would you recommend people to watch this?
Yeah, I would recommend, this, a lot of this, I would say, depends on how much you like Terry Gilliam. If you've seen things like Brazil and Adventures of Baron Munchausen, or 12 Monkeys, or any of his other films, and you like those, but you've not seen this, I would say, give it a shot. Also, if you like British films, but just know it's kind of slow. You know, I don't regret watching it. Again, I'm glad it's kind of like I feel like I can check that one off because I wasn't, you know, I wasn't sure if I'd seen it or not. And now I know I definitely had not. I'd maybe seen bits and pieces of it, but I'd never seen it in its entirety. So I think it's a thing of you get into where it was just not exactly what the movie that I wanted. But you know, just we talked about the visuals. The visuals are just fantastic.
Yeah.
So yeah,
concur.
I would recommend it. I mean, it's a good film, just slow.
I agree with you almost to the letter there. I recommend it almost just on the basis of those visuals and the performance of the stars that come into it. But with all of those little caveats attached, you know, and I don't want to say watch it as homework or watch it as an academic piece, but it's not. If somebody said, what's the most entertaining movie I could sit down and watch tonight, this one wouldn't leap to my mind. But if somebody was saying, Terry Gilliam has really had an interesting career, and I said, yeah, like we just watched Time Bandits, and you said, oh, I've never seen that, I'd be like, oh, you should watch Time Bandits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it's a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 6.9 on IMDb with 62,000 votes. So that's where I would put it, around like a 7.
Yeah.
You know, something like that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. 6.9. They just hedge that 7 a little bit. I might go with the 6.9. There's just that wish. Like I wish this was a 7.5 or an 8, but it's not. So I'm gonna give it 6.9.
Exactly. So we had talked about one that you had brought up was Romancing the Stone.
Right.
Which has been a long time since I've seen that. So I'd be happy to see that. And then I also was
Zemeckis,
saying that,
right? Isn't that Robert Zemeckis did that? I think so.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And there is a new movie coming out with Sandra Bullock and I don't know what the title of it is, but it's basically the plot of she's a romance writer or whatever and goes into the jungle with Channing Tatum, and it's just like, oh, this is just Romancing the Stone. So but that comes out in the summer. So and then also we had the only Del Toro film that I have not seen, which is on HBO Max right now, is Kronos, which is his first movie. So that's one that, you know, I'd love to. We've been on kind of a Del Toro kick. And then also, are you planning to see the Batman in theaters, or do you think you'll wait until, because that starts this weekend, and I imagine I will have seen it before we record next. So
I don't know. I don't have plans to go seek it out. Not this weekend. I kind of hurt my hip, so getting around is a little you know, and with the kids, I may see it in theaters. Like if I'm down in New York and I have time, I might go to a theater and see it. I would prefer to see it in the theater, but I don't want to commit to doing that for next time in case that becomes a challenge for me to get into.
So what do you think? Would you want to do Romancing the Stone, or would you want to do another Del Toro, or is there something else that?
What's Kronos about? Do you know? I know nothing about it.
It has something to do with vampires. But I think it's, you know, it's a Del Toro kind of spin on it. It's like an old man with these, let me look it up here really quick and I'll tell you I know it has to do with vampires. Came out in 1993 and it's Spanish language. A mysterious device designed to provide its owner with eternal life resurfaces after 400 years, leaving a trail of destruction in its path. And some of the reviews that I've read is that it's very Del Toro. It's just he's on a much smaller budget than what he has now. But has Ron Perlman in it, even though it's Spanish language.
Is it Ron Perlman speaking Spanish?
I guess so. His character is named Angel de la Guardia
Ramirez.
So I don't know. That's one that
I
I've
don't
always
know
wanted to
either.
see.
Do you have a preference for next week? I don't. I'm
How-
kind of toggling back and forth.
How about if we do to like, I don't want to use palate cleanser
Romancing the
in
Stone?
like in a bad way, but we've done a lot of Del Toro.
Change it
So yeah,
up.
let's
And
do Romancing the
yeah.
Stone, and we can do Kronos after
Okay.
that if we want.
Oh, we're going to do Romancing the Stone for next week, friends. And then Cronus, we'll see. We're going to see about that. And maybe the Batman, we're going to see about that too. So Chris and Chris Talk Movies at gmail.com. That is our email. You can send
and if
us
you
a
have
message.
suggestions for stuff to watch,
We're
by
on
all
the
means, let us know.
socials. We're on Facebook. We're on Insta. I don't think we're on TikTok.
No, we're not on TikTok.
We don't do
need
dances
to start
on
doing
the TikTok.
do some original comedy stuff on there or something.
But all that being said, if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. Please like and subscribe. If you are listening to us, thank you so much for sticking with us or just joining us, whatever the case may be. Why don't you watch Romancing the Stone and we can all discuss it? Well, not you. But us, you're there in spirit with us.
Yeah.
Maybe you are discussing it. We just can't hear you. For next week. So do you have anything else to add? A little bit of a short episode this week, but that's fine. Anything else to add?
No, I think that's all.
Wunderbar. Then we will talk to you next week.